Okay, so I'll just very quickly revise what we have done in yesterday's class, which module we have started. So you all know that we are doing module number 4. Okay, we are doing module number 4, and in module number 4 we are studying these 3 important chapters: classes and objects, classes and functions, and classes and methods. In the yesterday's class, we have already discussed about classes and objects. I gave you a little introduction to what is the meaning of object-oriented programming language. All object-oriented programming language have the concept of classes and objects. Then some features of object-oriented programming I showed you. After that, we saw what are the different types of features of an object-oriented programming. It has got inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, and all that. Then one thing we learned yesterday is that there is something called as attributes. There are class-level attributes and there are object-level attributes. So you can define some attributes for the objects. Yesterday we saw that there was a class called as point. We created object of that point class. We did p.x is equals to 10, p.y is equals to 20. So we defined 2 attributes, x and y. These are object level parameters, object level attributes. Remember this now, this is important. So we studied about object level attributes, okay? And then after that we wrote some programs also. We wrote some programs in which we found the distance between 2 points, all that we found, okay? So from here you can expect one question is that they will ask you what is object-oriented programming in Python, how to define a class, what is the meaning of object-level attributes. Demonstrate this with the help of an example program. So you have to write that point program which we saw yesterday. And then going on further, we saw the rectangle class. We saw the rectangle class where we studied that not only simple integer values can be assigned to attributes of an object, but you can also assign another object to an attribute of a different object. We saw that. So this was the example that we did yesterday. Box.corner is equals to point. So we are assigning to the attribute corner of box an object of point. So we saw this yesterday. And then we saw one example also of that, how to represent the object diagram also we saw. Then we understood how to copy 2 objects. What is the meaning of alias, alias, and then when you alias is basically what to the same object you give 2 different names. So if the object is changed using one object or one name, it is reflected to the other name also. Okay, so this is an example for that. I create p1 is equals to point, p.x is 10, p.y is equals to 20. Then I define one more object called as p2 is equals to p1. Now p2 and p2 are pointing to the same object. So this is called as aliasing. We give a different name to the same object. Okay, but copy is not made. 2 different memory locations are not reserved for p2. Okay, a separate memory location is not reserved for p2. It is pointing to the same memory location. But in case if you want to copy it into a new memory location, then you have to use something called as the copy function. Copy function is present, or the copy method is present in the copy module. And if you copy, then what will happen is a shallow copy will take place. Yesterday we have seen what is the difference between a shallow copy and what is the difference between a deep copy. Okay, shallow copy and deep copy we have seen yesterday. Okay, I want you to see that it's a big concept and it is important. I told you from examinations point of view, it is very important. They will ask that question: shallow copy and deep copy, differentiate. So you have to explain that with the help of an example program. Okay. Then you may have to draw some diagrams also for shallow copy and deep copy. Okay, and that was the end of yesterday's class. Now today we are going to start with the concept of classes and functions, the second chapter in module number 4, classes and functions. In this particular chapter, we are studying 2 very important functions. Okay, we are going to study 2 important functions: pure functions and modifier functions. Now these are important concepts that we have to study. Your questions in the examination will be based on this concept only. They will ask you with the help of an example program, demonstrate what is a pure function. I saw the question paper, which I will solve it after this module is complete. I will solve the question paper for module number 4, just like how I did it for module number 3. So there you will see that this pure function question is asked multiple times. Many times I've asked this question. Demonstrate by writing a Python program what is the meaning of a pure function, and demonstrate what is a modifier function. So we have to understand exactly what is the meaning of a pure function and a modifier function. Now remember, first understand what is the meaning of a function. A function is a set of statements that is written A name is given to it. Whenever you need to call that or execute that set of statements, you just call it by its name, the function name. You all know what is the meaning of a function. A function is set of statements that is written, a name is given to it, and whenever you want to execute this function, you just call it by its name. You can pass parameters to the function. You can pass values to the function. The function can take these values, process them. The function can take these values, process them, and then it can return you a value back. Functions may or may not return. Okay, if you have written a function which returns a value, then whoever is calling the function should accept those values coming back from the function. If the function is not returning anything, then the caller need not accept any values coming from the function. So if there is a return statement in the function, whoever is calling the function should have a variable which is accepting those values into it. So we will see that example now. So we have two different types of functions, pure functions and modifier functions. By definition, let us see what is a pure function. A pure function takes object as argument. Okay, a pure function takes object as argument and does some work without modifying any of the original argument. For example, if I have a function to which I pass argument, to which I pass a value, if I pass an argument to the function, if the function is not doing any change to the argument, it is called as a pure function. That's it. So the original difference, the only difference, the most important fundamental difference between a pure function and a modifier function is that a pure function will not do any changes to the argument that you pass to it. The arguments, whatever you pass to it, will remain as it is. The original value of those arguments will not change. You will understand this once we take an example. You will not understand it now. But by definition, you please remember that a pure function will not change the argument values after it has executed. On the other hand, a modifier function, what will it do? It is just the opposite of a pure function. So a modifier function will modify the values of the argument, original argument that is passed to it. Very simple. Definition of a pure function is it is a function which takes argument, but it will not do any changes to the argument. The value of the argument, even after the execution of the function, will remain the same only. But a modifier function will take argument, it will process something, and then at the end of the function, the original arguments have actually changed. The values of those original arguments have changed. This is the definition of a pure function and a modifier function. Okay, that's it. These are the only two definitions that you need to remember. Now, don't worry much about this prototype and patch right now. This is a different concept altogether. We are studying classes and functions, in which I told you that Python is an object-oriented programming language. Okay, we know that, we studied that. And then it has got it is also a functional language. It is not always required that you have to define everything in a class. Before this, all the programs that we wrote, we did not define a class at all. So it can also be it can also be used as a functional language. There are two types of functions. In Python, there are two types of functions, pure functions and modifier functions. Pure functions are the ones which will not change the argument. Modifier functions are the one which will change the argument. Okay, so let us go further immediately without wasting any time, and let us take an example and see what is the meaning of a pure function. To understand the concept of a pure function, it is always good to directly take an example. Okay, that one-line definition is sufficient to explain what is a pure function. Now let us take an example. In this example, they have written the explanation for what should be there in the example, but I will tell you, it contains a class called as time. It contains a class called as time. In the class, there is no representation. There is nothing. There's nothing in the class. The class doesn't contain any class level attributes. Functions are not there. Any data members are not there. It is an empty class, just like the point class yesterday which we wrote. Okay, and then after that, there is a function that we have written. Okay, in the same program, there is one class which does not contain anything. The name of the class is time, and there is a function called as print time. There is a function called as print time, and there is one more function called as add time. Add time. Okay, if I create an object of the time class t1, then this t1 will have three attributes. The object level attributes, that the object t1 will have three attributes. I will define three attributes for this object t1. Hours, seconds, and minutes are the three attributes that I will define. Okay, so that is what it says. I have to understand the concept of pure functions. Let us consider an example, creating a class called as time. An object of the class time contains hour, minutes, and seconds as attributes. Write a function to print time in HHMMSS format and another function to add two time objects. Okay. Note that adding the two time objects should yield proper result, and hence we need to check whether number of seconds exceeds 60, minutes 60, all that. Because if let us say the number of seconds is more than 60, it means that 1 minute has it. So we have to take care of all that. Is what it says here. Okay. So it says that we need two functions here. Print time, which should print the time, and it should take one more. I should define one more function in my program called as add a time, and it should add it two times. Now look at this. The print time function takes one argument, t. I have to pass t to it. What is t? T is an object of time. So when I call that function time, the object, whatever I pass here, that objects t dot hour will be printed, t dot minute will be printed, t dot seconds will be printed. So this function print time takes t, which is an object of time, as argument. It will display the hour, minutes, and seconds. Hour, minutes, and seconds. It will display the hour, minutes, and seconds of that object which you are passing to it. Okay, now remember I'm passing the object. Similarly, to the add time function, I will be passing two objects, T1 and T2. They are objects of the time class. T1 has got its hours, T1 has got its seconds, T1 has got its minutes. Similarly, T2 is another object which has got its own hours, T2 has got its own minutes, T2 has got its own seconds. So when I pass T1 and T2 two objects to the time add time function, what the function should do is it should add these two times and it should give me the result. After adding what is the new time, it should give me that result. That is what the add time function should do. Remember, add time function is taking two arguments, T1 and T2. It will add these two and then it will give me the sum of the two times. This is what is the function doing. Okay. Let us see what is the implementation of print time first. As soon as I pass t to it, what is it doing? It is simply displaying. Print, what is it printing? It is printing t dot hour, t dot minute, and t dot seconds. Why all this is required is because you want the output to be two digits followed by a colon. Okay, there is a colon after 2D. It will display two decimals, a colon, two decimals, colon. So wherever you find this percentage 2D, this t dot hour will be placed there. These are called as placeholders. If you remember in C programming language, we have something called as percentage D and all that. So something similar to that, we have it here in Python. So wherever this percentage 2D is appearing, that will be acting as a placeholder. So first 2D will be replaced with t dot hour, second percentage 2D will be replaced with t dot minutes, third percentage 2D will be replaced with t dot seconds. So basically, don't worry much about this print statement. It is quite simple. Print hour, minute, and seconds. It is only doing that. In between there is colon. Colon is coming. Now let us see what is the implementation of add time function. It takes two parameters, t1 and t2, which are two objects. First, what I do in this function is I define one more object called as sum. I define one more object called as sum. Sum is an object of time class. Then I do this sum dot hour is equals to t1 dot hour plus t dot hour. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm defining a new time. I'm defining a new time in which I'm adding the hour of t1 and t2 and putting it into the hour of sum. Simple, very, very simple. Two objects I'm accepting in this function. I'm defining a third object. I'm adding the hour, putting it into the hour of the third object. Similarly, I will add the minutes of t1, minutes of t2, put it into minute of sum. So sum is a new time. Remember, t1, t2 are two different times. Sum is the third time. It's a new time object. So sum dot hour is t1 dot hour plus t2 dot hour. Sum dot minute is equals to t1 dot minute plus t2 dot minute. Sum dot seconds is equals to t1 dot seconds plus t2 dot seconds. T1 dot seconds dot plus t2 dot seconds. So I put it into sum. Now we have to take care that the seconds have not increased more than 60. If sum dot seconds is greater than or equals to 60, what you have to do is you have to subtract that 60 from the seconds and add 1 minute to it. Sum dot minute is equals to sum dot minute plus 1. Why do we do this? We do this because the sum seconds is more than 60. Which means that if it is 70, let us say I add a t1 dot seconds and t2 dot seconds, and the sum of the 2 seconds is equal to 70. If it is 70, there cannot be 70 seconds. 70 seconds is equal to 1 minute, 10 seconds. So you have to add 1 minute to the minute of sum, and you have to subtract the 60 from the seconds. This is what we do. Similarly, if the sum dot minutes is greater than or equals to 60, minutes is greater than or equals to 60, subtract it from the minutes and add it to hours. add 1 to hours. This is what we do. And all this is happening where? In the add time function. Takes two objects, T1 and T2, adds the hours, minutes, seconds, takes care that seconds is not more than 60. If it is so, increment the minute. Okay, and decrement the seconds by 60. If take care that the minutes is not more than 60 or equals to 60. If it is so, subtract 60 from it and add 1 hour to the hour of the seconds. And finally, return sum. Return sum. The function add time is returning you a sum. What is sum? Sum is an object of time. So it will add the time and then it will give you back an object which is sum of T1 and T2. To understand the concept of pure functions, remember this is important. We are creating a new time object sum. We are adding T1 and T2, putting it into sum. T1 time, T2 time, we are adding second wise, minute wise, and hour wise, and we are putting it into sum of into some object. And then finally, we are returning back the object of time sum. We are returning back the object of sum. Okay, the object of time, which is sum. This is add time function. Now let us go further. Okay, let us not waste time. Let us go further and see here what I do first. Now my functions are over. Now my main program will start. First, I will define an object T1. Okay, is equals to time. I will initialize T1 dot hours is equals to 10. I say I'm defining a time for the object T1. T1 dot minutes is equals to 34. T1 dot seconds is equals to 25. So I initialize the time to the object T1. And then I print. I want to print this time. So I say print time 1 is print time t. See, I'm calling the function print time. What I'm passing to it? I'm passing T1 to it, which I just not created. And then the print time function will be called T1 will be copied into T, and then it will display hour, minutes, and seconds of. It will display hour, seconds, and minutes of time T1. Print time T1 will display me the hour, minutes, and seconds of the object T1. Similarly, I will define one more time object called as T2. T2 dot hour is 2. T2 dot minutes is equals to 12. T2 dot seconds is equals to 41. And then print. I want to print time 2. So time 2 is print time 2. So T2. Print T2 means if we call that function 1 second by passing T2 as a parameter. So T2's hour will be displayed. T2's minutes will be displayed. T2 seconds will be displayed. Finally, T3. Okay, I want to call the function add time by passing T1 and T2. I want to call the function add time by passing the arguments T1 and T2. Which T1 and T2? These which I have defined. T1 is 10, 34, 25. 10 hours, 34 minutes, 25 seconds. And T2 is 2 hours, 12 minutes, 41 seconds. So I'm passing that as arguments, calling the function add time. Okay. You know that the add time function will return you back an object of time, which is sum. It is returning back your sum. So that's why what I do is I define T3. I define T3 is equals to, because this function add time is going to return me back an object of time, which I'm going to take it into T3. So I like T3 is equals to add time T1 comma T2. Anyhow, this function is going to return me back an object only, so I take it into T3. And then finally, I want to display the value of T3 because it is the addition of T1 and T2. I say print after adding 2 times, print T3, print time T3, right? Print that. So you understood? Added 2 functions, one to print the time, the other one to add 2 times. I defined 2 times T1 and T2, initializing them with some values. Then I call the function add time, passing T1 and T2 as a parameter. What comes back from this function is put into T3, and then I display T3. So how will be the output of this program? The output of this program will be like this. Time 1 is 10, 34, 25. This is what will happen when you print T1. Then time 2 is 2, 12, 41. After adding the 2 time objects, the output is 12, 47, and 06. 12, 47, and 06. This is how the output will come. Okay, this is how the output will come. So this is an example, a perfect example of a pure function. Why? The question is why this is the pure function. There are 2 functions that we have written. Print time and add time. How many parameters it is taking? It is taking t, the first function, print time. This is the pure function. This is definitely a pure function. It is taking t as a parameter. But here, anyway, is it doing any change to the parameter t? It is only displaying the value. It is not doing any changes to the parameter t here. If it does any changes to the parameter t here in the function body, if it does any changes to the parameter t here, remember it is not a pure function. It becomes a modifier function. But look at this program. It is not doing any changes to the t object. Similarly, look at this function. This is also a pure function. Add time takes two parameters is also a pure function. Definitely a pure function. Why? Because it is taking two arguments, T1 and T2. Is it doing any changes in the body here to T1 and T2? It is not doing any changes. It is creating a new object sum and then putting the addition of the two T1 and T2 into sum. But it is not doing any changes to T1 and T2. If the T1 and T2 value changes, these are the arguments. If the values of this argument changes anywhere in the body of the function, that function will be a modifier function. But in this example here, you saw that it is not at all changing the values of T1 and T2. It is not assigning any values to T1 and T2. It is only using the values of T1 and T2. Okay, so that's why when you see these T1 and T2 on the right hand side of the equal to sign, it is only using the values and putting the values here. Okay, so it is creating a new object sum, adding the 2 hours, putting it into sum of hour, adding the 2 minutes, putting it into here, seconds, putting it into seconds, and then it is returning the sum. T1 and T2 in the entire course of the function is not changing. So this is an example of a pure function because it is not changing any value of the original argument. That's it. That's it. So if you write this example in the examination, you will get full marks. First, you have to define what is the meaning of a pure function. You have to say that it is a function which does not change the values of the arguments that is passed to it. The example for that is we are going to consider a class called as time. We are going to write two functions, print time and add time. Okay, we are going to write two functions, print time and add time. Print time will take one object, add time will take two objects, and you can write this example. Simple example. You don't have to worry much about writing complicated programs for all. Okay, so simple examples we have to write. Okay, once we have done this, now we have finished pure functions. Now let us go for modifier functions. Okay, what is the meaning of a modifier function? Modifier function is one which will change the value of an argument which is passed to it. Take an example. Take the same example. Here, I want to write a modifier function which will actually change the value of the original argument that is passed to it. So they have given an example here. They say that you add one more. They say that you add one more function to the class. One more function to the class. This function should be a modifier function. What it should do is it should take two arguments. Okay, the name of the function should be increment. It should take two arguments. Object of time t and seconds. Object of time t and seconds. The name of the function is increment. What this function should do is it should increment the object that is passed to it. T is an object of time. It has got its hour, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so you should pass t, the object, and the seconds that should be added to it. The seconds that should be added to it. You should add that. Okay, and the actual argument should change. The actual argument should change. When it is changing the actual argument here, remember it becomes a modifier function. Okay, so what I do is I define a function increment, takes t, and then seconds. So what I do inside the function is very simple. T dot seconds is equals to t dot seconds plus seconds. T dot seconds is equals to t dot seconds plus seconds. T dot seconds plus is equal to seconds actually means t dot seconds is equals to t dot seconds plus seconds. So I'm adding these number of seconds. I'm adding these number of seconds to the time object. So I'm actually changing the t here. You can see that t dot seconds is on the left hand side of the equals to sign, which means that I'm modifying that value. And hence, increment function becomes a modifier function because it is modifying the object. It is modifying the value of that object. In the previous example, I did not change any value of the argument that is passed to it. But here I'm changing the value of the argument. I'm changing t dot seconds. I'm incrementing it by these many seconds. Okay, and the logic that is written down here is quite simple. Actually, it should be if condition. If t dot seconds is greater than or equals to 60, then it should subtract it from that, and minutes should be incremented by 1. If minutes is greater than or equals to 60, it should decrement the minutes by 1, and then it should by 60, and then it should increment the hour. The same concept which we have written on the top. But what we have to understand in this function is that it is actually changing the argument that is passed to it. Okay. Now, the entire program is not given here. The entire program is not given here. I will attempt to write this program. Okay. Immediately, I will try to type this program and show you the output. Okay. So just pay attention here. I will open notepad and I will type my program here. I don't want my class to contain anything. I define a function called as incr, which takes t and seconds as arguments. What it will do here is it will increment t dot seconds is equals to t dot seconds plus seconds. Okay, and okay, if okay, if t dot seconds, if it is greater than or equals to 60, then t dot t dot seconds is equals to t dot seconds minus 60, and t dot minutes is equals to t dot minutes plus 1. Okay, so this is my address, and similarly if t dot minutes, if it is greater than or equals to 60, then t dot minutes 60 hours plus 1. Okay, so I finished writing my program. Okay, now I will define t1, which is equals to an object of time, t1 dot hours is equals to 3, t1 dot hours is equals to, sorry, minutes is equals to, let us say 20, and t1 dot seconds is equals to 30. Okay, and then see here what I do is I will uh, print I will print t1 dot hours, last 10 minutes remaining. Yeah, last 10 minutes remaining. Okay, for the meeting, what I will do is, even if like I said, this meeting gets over, I will start the meeting once again. You click on the same link and you log in. Okay, you click on the same link and you can log in. I need some 5-10 minutes extra. Even if the meeting gets over, please click on the link on that once again. The same link you have to click, and then you have to rejoin to the meeting and start the meeting. So now what I do is I do t.hours, I print, then I will print so instead of writing a print time function, I will print everything here only. t1.hours, t1.minutes is hours, h is small, and t1 dot seconds. Okay, so I print t1 dot hours, minutes, and seconds, separating them by colons. Okay, we print time before increment. Time before increment, I will display it as it is. See, because I did not call the increment function, so I will initialize t1, and then I will display t1. Now, after this, time after increment. So here I will call the increment function incr. Okay, incr is the name. Okay, and then I pass t1 as a parameter, and then I'll say 10. I pass 10. Okay, I'll save this file. Save. I will explain the program to you people. MMC Python, and then module 4. I will call this as uh, mod mod function mod function dot py. Mod function dot py is the name that I give to the file mod function dot py. Save. Okay. Now what I'm doing here is I am defining a class time and then I'm defining a function called as increment. It is a modifier function because the parameter t that I'm passing to it, it will get changed and I'm passing seconds. What will this function do? Is it will take the object, it will add this number of seconds to that and then it will give me back the new time. How will it, is it returning anything? It is not returning anything. If you see that the incr function is not returning anything back. It is not returning anything back because it is actually changing the original argument only. It will do seconds of t is equal to seconds of t plus seconds what I'm passing. So it is actually changing the same t. So when I call this function increment t1, t1 gets copied into t and whatever changes I do to t will actually happen to t1. I'm passing t1 object as parameter as argument to the function incr. T1 gets copied into t. Whatever changes I'm doing to t will actually happen to t1. The original argument is getting changed. The original argument is getting changed. The original argument is getting modified. Okay. So what change is happening? What changes is happening to the original argument? The number of seconds is getting incremented by this many number of seconds. Okay. So I create T1, I initialize it to 30, 3 hours, 20 minutes, 30 seconds, and then print time before increment. Before I perform the increment, I display what is the time, and then I increment. I call the increment function by passing T1, and then I say 10. And then after that, see what I'm displaying. I'm displaying the same object T1.hours, T1.minutes, and T1.seconds, hoping that the value of T1 has changed. Before the increment, I'm displaying T1 only, and after the increment, I'm displaying T1 only. When I'm calling increment, I'm not getting anything back, the changed value or a new value, I'm not getting anything back. I'm just calling the function, hoping that T1 only is changed. So after the increment function, I'm displaying the value of T1 only. If it modifies the value of T1, I will get the modified value here. If let us say this increment function is not changing the value of T1, then I will get the same value, which is before increment. I hope this is clear. Okay, I will repeat this once again. I declared an object T1. I first initialized them to these values 3, 20, 30 seconds, 3 hours, 20 minutes, 30 seconds. I displayed the value of T1. So definitely when I say T1.hours, it will display 3. When I say T1.minutes, it will display 20. When I display T1.seconds, it will display 30 because it is before the increment. Then I call the increment function by passing T1 as the argument. Remember, this function is not returning me back anything, a new value. No. After I call the increment function, I am again displaying T1.hours, T1.minutes, and T1.seconds, hoping that the value of T1 is changed. How will it change? What is the function doing? Increment, it is only incrementing the seconds. So what is my seconds? 30. So when I pass T1.10, so T1.seconds should display me 40. So display me 40. Okay, so I'll save this now. File, save. I go to the command prompt. And here I go to the D drive. Then we see Python. And here I go to CD module for one more folder I created. And then here Python mod function.py. Enter. So you can see that first time before increment is 320 30 seconds, time after increment is 320 40. Did you see this 40 here? The 40 here means that after I call the function increment by passing this t as argument to the function, t is getting changed, and when I display the value of t dot seconds, it is actually the changed value. It is incrementing it by 10 seconds because I'm passing 10 here. If I change this to 20, control S, if I change that to 20, I saved it. Now if I come and execute, you can see that it was 30. After calling the function, it became 50. If I change it by 30, let us say I want to increment it by 30. So I want to increment it by 30. So what do you think will happen? Minutes will get incremented by 1. So it was 20, it became 21, and the seconds became 0 because I incremented 30 by 30, it became 60 seconds. 60 seconds is equal to one more extra minute. So that is added to the minute, and the seconds became 0. Who's taking care of this? These two conditions here are taking care of that. I hope this is clear. Okay, you understood. I hope this is clear. You understood. You understood what is the meaning of a pure function. A pure function is one which will not change the value of the argument, whereas a modifier function will change the value of the original argument. That's it. So you have to write this example. You have to write this example. This example is not there in the notes, so you may have to maybe take a screenshot of this, or I will have all the programs with me. You can take it from me once the college starts, or I will share this on the group. Let us see. Okay, but it is very simple. It's a very simple program. Okay, let us go back to the notes. What we did is we wrote a modifier function. The same program I've written, it takes t, it increments the seconds, checks the condition. That's it. So this is the end of pure functions and modifier functions. Now there is a concept of prototyping and planning. Now this has absolutely got to do nothing with object-oriented programming. Here, they have only explained. I don't know why this suddenly came up in this chapter here. This is something which is completely different. Here, what they are trying to say is that whenever a software or any project is developed, we don't directly start coding the project. We actually take, whenever a project or whenever a product, any software has to be developed, there will be a set of requirements. There will be a set of requirements. And these requirements has to be implemented in the project. Okay. Now, requirements are what the customer will tell you to do. The customer will tell you to implement this in the project. He will tell you to implement that in the project and all that. So you start implementing one by one. So first, what you do is you start implementing the first set of requirements, and then after that you add new set of requirements to it. So first, what you develop with the fundamental requirements, the first set of requirements you start with is called as a prototype. And then to this prototype, you keep adding new requirements. You keep implementing new requirements and keep adding it to the prototype. Okay, so this methodology is called as a prototype and patch. Prototype is the first software that you develop with the first set of requirements, and then as and when new requirements come, you implement that and you patch it to the prototype. So this is called as prototype and patch. But this procedure is not good. This procedure is not good because the code becomes completely unstructured, the project becomes unmanageable, debugging becomes a problem. All that will be a lot of problem. Okay, using this prototype and patch method is not good. Okay, so that's the reason why people go on to an alternative method called as design development. Design development.